All right, I called this lesson Brains 101. I am not a brain surgeon. I love brains. I think they're fascinating. But this is just some stuff that I've learned about that is just so fascinating to me. And this lesson is a very basic overview meant to introduce just a few ideas to help you maybe understand why you do some of the things that you do. And it goes hand in hand with the mindset stuff that we just talked about. First, if you've never heard of a lizard brain, that is the most primitive part of our brains. It's part of the limbic system, which controls our basic emotions and drives. This is where our survival instinct lives, and its job is to keep you alive. Now, much like the fixed mindset, it keeps you stuck in a rut because part of its job of keeping you alive means keeping your identity alive. And so what feels like you to your brain your brain's going to protect that, right? So if you feel very extremely nervous being in front of people, then your lizard brain is going to do whatever it can to keep you from being in that situation, because that's not you. You're not comfortable in that. So it kind of keeps you stuck in a rut, or it can. If you step out of your comfort zone, it's out of character, and your lizard brain interprets that as a danger to your identity, and it's trying to keep your identity alive. So without realizing why, you procrastinate, you avoid, you obsess over details, you are overly self-critical, or other things like that, or how it manifests. There's a wonderful author I love, Seth Godin, and here's a quote from him about the lizard brain. The lizard brain cares what everyone else thinks because status in the tribe is essential to its survival. Okay, your lizard brain wants to keep things as they are. It's scary because if you fail, you feel like you're really standing out, and it's safer to fail small, and we like safety, don't we? The good news is that you can outsmart your lizard brain if you are intentional about fostering a growth mindset. The first step is to develop awareness. So that just means noticing when that fear or discomfort kicks in. And then the second step is to confront your lizard brain and decide to use it as a tool instead of avoiding it. Sounds simple enough, right? So in other words, what you're going to be doing is telling your lizard brain to shut up. Of course, it's not that easy or straightforward, but I'll be sharing some specific actions in both areas, developing awareness and doing the opposite of what your lizard brain wants you to do. This is how you begin to reinvent yourself. Now, before we get to that, it helps to understand what makes it even possible to reinvent yourself, and that is neuroplasticity. And the definition of neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain to change continuously throughout an individual's life to form new connections and pathways. In other words, you can change your brain. How cool is that? So it's not just with regard to knowledge, but you can also change how your brain processes information. Learning a way of learning, right? Just like we do in Simply Music. So if you have limiting beliefs about yourself that keep you stuck, think of it this way. A disruption of your belief system is a chance for growth. And I'm a firm believer in the power that we have with regard to our thoughts shaping our experience of day-to-day reality. We can rewire our brain. We tend to think that we are capable of a lot less than we actually are. So there's this quote in your workbook that I just love. Whatever you think your limits are, you're wrong. Absolutely everyone has the capacity to be better at virtually everything. You can be better next week a little bit, but in a year, you can be a lot better in almost anything that matters to you. And that quote was by Dr. Michael Merzenich, who's considered the father of neuroplasticity. I think that's a good quote that applies to our students too, right? When they get frustrated, like it's taking too long to learn Jackson Blues or whatever, but a year later when they look back on it, wow, what progress. So I'm going to ask you what I ask a lot of my students, typically adults, when they express limiting beliefs about what they think they can do. What I like to say is, are you willing to consider the possibility that your brain is capable of much more than you realize? And are you willing to test it? Like, who would say no to that? Like, no, I refuse to grow. So it's a good question to ask. And so I want to ask you the same question. And if your answer is yes, then you can step into the gap. You can work on getting unstuck in any area where you're stuck. And you can move toward where you want to be. Now, we've set a really broad context here, but in the next lesson, we're going to get to some specific practical steps that will help you get there.